So one of the things that is also different with me and my wife is that we work in a business together too. So that means that we're both raising the kids together. We have 6 kids. We work in a business together. That means we do both have responsibilities in it. I'm not just working over there and I'm gone and then she stays at home. Like we have responsibilities inside of the business. And so being able to understand that we both have things that we care about that we have to do, that we both to some extent responsible for the supporting inside of the family because there's skill set that she has that I don't have and I have to respect that, And for her also respect that there's skill set that I have that she doesn't have, So I think it really goes into respecting the other person. Respect their responsibility, respect their boundaries, I'm somebody that likes to work. Like I like to work. I enjoy working, But sometimes there's a dark side to that, right? If you work too much, then you're not present, but you also have to provide. And so it's the balance and understanding that what I want is not necessarily the most important thing. What she wants is not necessarily the most important thing. It's about both of us being able to understand that we're going to have to put stuff aside and come to those boundaries of like, what is it that we accept, that we agree, and have some compromise. And that's how you're able to navigate those waves. So I had this job. I was working in higher education and it was a great trajectory. I was one of the youngest professor and I was also working in administration and the climb was happening. I had a podcast. I had written my first book. My podcast was, I think in the New and Noteworthy was like ranked 10 on iTunes. Like I was just like on the climb. And then I felt the pull to go full time into entrepreneurship. And I asked God, I'm like, hey, so I need a clear sign. This is what I need to do. Because at the time we had 2 kids going on 3. My wife was pregnant. And I'm like, it doesn't make a lot of sense to do it, but like I need a clear sign this is what I need to do. And it came. It was a video on YouTube from somebody called Mitt Romney. And he was talking about this is what entrepreneurship looks like. And he said entrepreneurship looks like this. You go out, you launch into the deep, you cast down your nets, and then they will be full. And then he explained it, because that was part of my stuff too. I was like, God, I need a sign, and I need it explained. And so it got explained. And so the first one is you go and you launch, right? You're not going halfway. You're going full speed, full force. You're going, right? Not like halfway. You're all in. You're launching, okay? And then you're going to the deep. Now the thing with the deep is this. If you've ever been on a boat, the further you are from shore, the quieter it is. The colder it is even, And you look around and there's not a lot of boats around usually, right? You're like, oh God, if I fall, I don't know that people can save me, right? That's the deep. You can feel lonely, alone, not a lot of support around you. And then you do the work. Now doing the work is, if you think of like, with the nets and stuff, is you don't know where the work is. Is it here? Is it there? Is it left, right, behind me? Like you don't know, but you do the work. And then the beautiful thing is that there's a promise. There's a promise that is attached to it that the nets will be full. First, you have to launch. 2, you have to go into the deep. 3, you have to throw the nets. And then there's the promise of they'll be full. So I went, get my notice and then left. And then got into entrepreneurship, and it was beautiful, and it was fun. And then I forgot that I had to make more money because the steady paycheck was no longer there. And I didn't do it. And so we had to sell a house. We had to sell our first house, which was like, an amazing deal. And I even remember like my ego was so high at that moment. Like I remember my wife coming in, I was editing a podcast episode, and she asked me, she said, hey, did you pay the water bill? And I was like, yeah. I didn't even look at it. I was like, yeah, I paid the water bill. And she's like, well, the water is off, And I'm like, what do you mean? And so I'm like checking, because I'm like, okay, maybe, I don't know. So I'm checking like, yeah, the bill has not been paid. I'm like, that's weird because I was on auto pay. Then I'm checking the personal account, and it's just like, we're negative 200. And then I'm like, okay, well, I'm just going to transfer some money. So I'm going to the business account, and the business account was like negative like 400. And I was just like, what the hell? How do we get here? And obviously inside of like the business, like, cash flow, right? Like the time that things are here and then the money is not coming in right away because people are paying late or whatever. But either way, my eyes were not on that. Were not on the focus on the money and where the money was going. And so long story short, we ended up having to sell. And I remember talking to my coach, at the time, which year 3 of business, I knew that I needed a coach because coaches can see things that you can't see. So for all the people that don't have a coach, like, you're making it harder than what it needs to be. So anyway, she's like, hey, you need to focus on the one thing. And the one thing is your brick and mortar business. And I remember how it felt to put down the podcast, to put down the speaking, to put down the writing books, like, to put all that stuff down on the shelf. Like, it was burning. The best way I could explain is that it felt like a fire that I had to take out and then put down, right? So I did. And then we ended up, having to rent. And I remember, like, whenever we had to try to rent a house, the landlord was like, hey, do you have a W-2? And I was just like, so I'm an entrepreneur. And, we do distribution. So we take money out, when we need it. Pretty much like, no, I don't have a W-2. And obviously that is a little bit risky for from a landlord perspective to get somebody in that does not have any, pay stubs. But I was like, hey, how about if we pay the year up front, would you allow us to stay there, right, for that year? And by that time, like, we'll be able to, to continue to pay, and you have trust in us that we're good. And he said yes. And I remember that was the biggest check I have ever written at that time, which was like 18,000. I think it was 18,000 or 21,000. One of those two. No, I think it was 21,100. And we only had $18,000 left for the whole year from the sale of the house, right? And we had 3 kids at the time. And I just remember feeling like, yo, it's back against the wall. We just, like, you got to show up. You got to show up and move. And from that moment, so our brick and mortar, we had, dance studio. We went from, I think it was like 125 kids to that year, 250, to the year after that, 350 or 300, and then 350. So we literally went almost on this hockey stick growth, and then we eventually, were able to, to buy another house and stuff. But the moment of decision to go into entrepreneurship was not met with like, oh my gosh, everything was perfect. It was actually like, oh my gosh, there's so much stuff I need to work on. My ego I need to work on. My, admitting that you don't know. Putting down something that you felt called to do. Like this speaking and the writing, I felt called to do it just like since 2013, 2014. But it wasn't the right timing, right? There's your timing and there's God's timing. And I felt at that time like I was meant to know that it was there, but it was not the moment for me to be seen, to do this work. It wasn't. All the way until I started back almost 10 years later in 2023, around 2023. So that's how I got into entrepreneurship. Would I have done things differently in the beginning of entrepreneurship? The answer is yes. I would have. The biggest one is like, I would have probably listened to my wife a little faster because she wanted to for us to start with like clear SOPs, system, operations, and procedures. Like clean, we know exactly how everything is working. And I was just go. Let's just go. We're gonna figure it out once we go, And what that did is that created just a lot of unnecessary stress, right? Because a startup is chaotic to begin with. So if you're chaotic and then you don't have clear system, operations, and procedures, it makes it even harder. So there was a lot of pain and turnover that we had in people that was just not needed to be had if we had the SOPs in order before, So that is definitely one that I would have changed, go back in and change. Number 2, I would have not stopped our YouTube channel. What I did, like we were just trending up and I slowed down the YouTube channel. I would have continued. I think would have been like so far ahead of anybody. And number 3, I would have worked on my communication skills a lot earlier, like being able to, had a framework I talk about a lot, which is beautiful. It's like MVE, mirror, validate, empathize, just to allow you to connect with people. Will also allow you to hear them, like their words, where they at, but also their emotions and their feeling. I would have worked on that a long time ago, way earlier. That would have saved so much time and so much money and so much pain. All right, so a question I get a lot of time for entrepreneurs that have been stuck at 6-figure in their business is, how did you cross the 7, right? You don't have there's not as many small businesses that cross the 7-figure than you think. There's just not, which is very interesting. And I have a theory regarding the why. My first one is that if you were to think of the money in your business as the fruits, right? So you think of a tree, and then you think of the fruits on the tree is the money. Everybody is going for, how do I make the fruits bigger? Literally, the focus is like the fruits, man. What do I do to the fruits? Like, how do I make them bigger? Like, is it the branches? Is it like, do I need to shoot them with something? Do I need to protect them? Where you look at it and it's like the tree and the fruits are just the result. Like, you cannot influence the fruits. So for us, and it was crazy. We crossed the million when we literally focused on our marriage. We spent $5,000 or so inside of like marriage coaching, to really start working on us as a union. And that's the first year that we crossed the million. Still had the goal of like, hey, 1.5, hey, this is the direction we want to go and all that. But the liftoff was whenever we focused on the core, which was the tree, the core of the tree, which was us. Everything else is just a result of the fact that we were healthy as a unit, or healthier as a unit, and that allowed us to get those bigger. A lot of time people don't look at that. You don't look at you as a whole, or you and your relationship with your spouse or people close to you, because especially as a leader, your business is going to go up or down depending on you, the operator. It's magical. You work on you and your spouse, work on you as a whole human, and then magically almost the business just grows. But that's how we did it. The change was that we started focusing on our marriage. Like, we got counseling in our marriage. That was the thing. There was no more just not focusing on us as a unit. Because again, the money is the energy, is just a result. Everybody's trying to influence the results. We're just like, if you go and you fix the roots and the tree, possibly the soil, right? Like, just get planted somewhere else. Get around other people that have a higher level of ethic. Like, you do that, then magically the tree is healthier. The fruits are bigger. Oh gosh, there's more fruits. But that's not what everybody wants to hear. Everybody wants to hear about like, what are the tactics? What are the offers? All that kind of stuff. But it's really because business is about energetics. It's about this, like you being able to feel it, and also this. It's not just all about strategies and tactics. So the way I did it, I just left. The goal was like, hey, I'm going to replace my income, and once I got it replaced, then I'm transitioning. That's probably the smartest thing to do, especially when you have kids. That's just not what I did. I'm one that is adventurous, that would take the risk, and so I just gave my 2-week notice and then just left and try to produce more. But if I'm somebody that's working a 9 to 5, I would really give myself a window of time. By this date, I'm going to do X. Done. And then honor it, because there's something magical that happened, right? When you decide where you're going to go, when you're going to go, why you're going to go, and just an idea of how you're going to do it. Your brain, your subconscious mind, the world, things just shift for you to actually go and achieve them. But it's very scary because you're like, oh my gosh, it is so unknown. But there's a risk reward always. I think it's Bezos that talked about that. I don't know if I'm quoting him correctly, but he said that pretty much like a lot of people are more afraid of losing than they're afraid of winning. So they put like a lot of fear behind, oh my gosh, if I try and do this, it's going to be horrible. It's going to be so bad. Like, I'm going to die, right? Versus, wow, if I actually pull it off, it's going to be so amazing. So they're focusing on all the problems that could actually happen. Because reality is just like, okay, let's say the business doesn't work. What are you going to do next? You're going to go back and get a job. You're going to go back to exactly where you were to get a job. But what if you never start? Then you're just never going to know. And you're never going to grow the same way. Being an entrepreneur, being a business owner, there's a level of growth that happens inside of like your leadership, inside of selling, inside of marketing, inside of personal development that happens at a faster pace than anyone else. And you would have just missed that because you were so afraid to go and take on. I'll say, first of all, I was like, what does winning mean? What does winning mean? Right? Like, are we talking about successful? Are you afraid to be successful? And I'll say that being successful varies widely from person to person, right? My description or my definition of success is you being able to set a target or a direction and moving towards that direction. If I'm moving towards that direction, I'm successful. That's what it is for me. So the fear of somebody, it's like I'm afraid of being successful. So that means of growing. I was just said, hey, what is the opposite? Healthy things grow. Period, the end. If something is not growing, it doesn't quite stay stagnant. A lot of people are like, no, if it doesn't grow, it doesn't die. It can stay stagnant. Rarely. In life, when something doesn't grow, when you see a tree and the tree does not have like new leaf, the tree is dying. Like we know that's like, nah, this tree is dying. And you can't quite see it, but it is dying. And so whenever you're not going and focusing, or not focusing, but like you're pursuing the target that you put for yourself, whatever that looks like, then by definition, you're going the opposite direction. You're actually dying slowly. You're contracting. Less risk, less risk, less risk, less risk. And so that's what I would say. Just like, what is the opposite? The opposite is dying. The opposite is less risk. The opposite is like you're becoming smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And eventually you don't recognize who is in front of the mirror because you've shrunk so much. And how sad would it have been if like the thing that you were supposed to do and bring to life never came. And somebody was just there for your thing, your voice, your leadership, to connect with it. If we were never done the studio, for example, like we've had like thousands and thousands of people in 13 years, like thousands of families coming through and life impacted. If we had never started, we would have never impacted those lives. Never. They would have never felt an environment that cares deeply, an environment that feels like a second home for some, an environment where they got scholarshiped fully for their dance education. They would have never experienced it because we would have just said like, ooh, the risk is too much. No, I'm not gonna try to do that because it's too risky. I have kids. I should not. I have a great career. Like, what would I do that stupid? But we did. And because we did, we were able to give the safe space for people to come work, people to come take classes, and being a pillar inside of our community. But it would never happen if we didn't say yes. Okay, God, I'm going to go. Do I feel fear? Yes, I do. Did we lose houses? Yes, we did. Yes, we did. And that was because there was things that I had to work on that I didn't know at the time. But by saying yes and moving in that direction, afraid and all, things moved. I had done a video on this. It was like going on the highway at night. Now, I've had a cornea transplant this side. And so for me, like nighttime is like really where it's the hardest to drive because of the way the light is, okay? So for people, no more people driving, it might not be that big of a deal. But for me, it's always been a challenge since the transplant, which is you're getting there, right? You're in a full stop and there's a bunch of cars just like going through. And you gotta just like pick up the speed like as fast as you can almost to like catch up to the traffic, right? I couldn't always tell the distance, right? And maybe you've experienced that too. You're there and you can't quite tell the distance, like how far they are from you, right? Is the car coming? Is they close? Is they far? Like, do I have enough space? Are they gonna accelerate? And so you playing all those scenarios in your head. Am I gonna go too fast? And they're gonna crash? Or am I gonna crash? Is my tire gonna blow up? What if I'm driving and then my battery dies? Like you playing scenarios that the likelihood of those scenarios happening are like small, right? And eventually you're like, I'm going. I feel like I've been there long enough. I'm going. This is what it is sometimes to leave your 9 to 5 to come in or to try to go and win, right? You're going. And when you go, this magical thing happen. People slow down. Other people, when you merge, they go to the next lane. You realize that, oh my gosh, all the fear that I had of like people crashing into me, whatever, were not accurate. Whenever I came in, I was introduced as a player into the game. People have moved and I have space now because I take space. I have value. I have gifts that I'm bringing into the marketplace, that I'm bringing into other people. And then you realize that all those stories and beliefs that you had were not accurate. So getting on the highway at night. Billions. I mean, I think risk is like the possibility of failing, the possibility of failing and of losing a lot, and obviously my wife and we're very risk advert. Like we've taken more risk than sometimes necessary, sometimes because of the adventure of it, but oftentimes because of the call, because of the intuition. When you understand and you get to be old enough, like as I'm doing this, like I'm about to be 40 and I've had 6 kids, had a business for like 13 years, married for, I think, 16, 17 years. So I've lived a little. You get to understand God's timing. And God's timing is beautiful. God's timing is sometimes brutal. But you understand that we are called to be faithful, to take those leap of faith. And leap of faith is like, I'm risking to some extent something. I'm not sacrificing, I'm risking this possibility of just having nothing. It's like there's a story in the Bible, the parable of the talent. I love that story. It's like there's a master, he's about to leave, he has 3 servants. And so he gives, I'm sure I'm gonna have the numbers wrong, so don't worry about the numbers. Think of the story. So he gives, is the first servant, he gives him like 5 talent, right? Then second servant, he gives him like 3 talent. And then the last servant, he gives him like 1. And so the last servant, he's like, yo, I know my master, he doesn't play around with money. I don't want to lose his money. So what he does is he hides the talent. He digs a hole, puts it in there, covers it. Number 2, he's like, like, yeah, he doesn't like to lose money, but you know what? I feel like I can double this. And so he goes, risks it. He risked the money. He risked the talent. He can technically lose all his stuff and possibly get killed, or who knows, right? Because the master likes the money. Boom, doubles it. Number 3 is like, ooh, man, I know the master. He's a little bit, doesn't like to lose, but I feel like I'm good. I feel like I can do it. And so what he does, he goes and he triples it. So he triples his 5, like he gets 15, right? Then the master comes back. Master comes back after his trip and he asks, he's like, hey, so what happened? Last servant, hey, I got it. See that? I didn't lose it. Here it is. Here's your talent. Number 2 comes in. Hey, I invested it. Here it is. There's 6. Number 3 is like, hey, I grew it. I invested it. Here's 15. The master goes to the last one and says, you lazy servant. I could have put that in the bank and get a return, but because you were so afraid, I lost profit. Possible profit. And what he did is just like he asked that his thing gets given to the one that risked the most and that he gets thrown into somewhere. So the moral of the story is this, is that your only reason for being afraid is because you don't trust yourself. You don't trust that you're good enough. You don't trust that you're valuable enough. You don't trust that just like pulling up in a highway at night, that when you pull up, people are going to move out the way because intrinsically you have value and that people are waiting for you to show up so that they can be also liberated, so they can hear your voice. And so you're doing a disservice to those people that you're called to serve by not acting and moving forward. So what is needed to gain confidence every day? In order for you to gain confidence every day, the first thing is do what you say you're going to do. Do what you say you're going to do. The reason for that is because whenever you start to compromise what you say you're going to do long enough, you start to not trust yourself that you're going to do anything you say you're going to do. So if you say you're going to work out, work out. If you say you're going to take the trash out, take the trash out. If you said that you're going to show up at a party, and even if you're tired, like it was a long day, show up at the party. Because the moment that you start to sacrifice your words is the moment that you start to lose confidence in yourself to achieve something. That is, to me, the number one thing, because it is so connected to everything else. Because what it does is like it cascades down to other things, to your body, to your relationship, because you no longer trust that what you say is the truth. And that means that your wife might not trust, or your partner might not trust what you say is the truth. Your employee, if you have employees, or your vendors, or your clients, because it slowly erodes and cascades down. So the number one thing is do what you say you're going to do. Way past the emotion that made you say yes. Don't make promises you can't keep, because as soon as you do that, you start to be less confident. A guy that's super confident is just like, if he's always done what he says he's going to do, and he said, yo, I'm going to make X money by this date, he is going to make X money by this date. Why? Because he's always done what he says he's going to do. From the smallest action, he's always done it. So his body, his brain, his subconscious doesn't know any bit different. Yo, we say we're going to do that? Shit, okay. Oh, we say we're going to go into this fight? We always done what we say we're going to do. I guess we got to train, guys. Like, your body does not know any different. But if you've compromised again and again and again, your body's like, yo, there might be a way out. Right? I love Kobe. So Kobe Bryant had this thing, right? When he said like he'll create this contract for himself, right, in a summer of like what the agreement is, what he is going to do. This, and then he will sign it. And anytime the feeling will come in, he was just like, nope, we did a contract and we signed it. This is the agreement. Now I get to do it. Now the caveat with that, or the caution with that, is if you're married and if you have kids, is don't make contracts like that or agreements like that with yourself without talking to your spouse. I made a mistake of doing that before, where I was like, I had this agreement with myself that I'm like, I'm going to do this and I'm never going to skip, but I never discussed it with my family. That for me, this was so important. That for me, I had made this agreement and I do not want to not do it and compromise my word to myself, right? And so it got received as me just only caring about myself. What I was just like, I was just making sure that I don't slip into just like not honoring my word, but I never told them from the beginning that, hey, there's this thing and it's an agreement with myself. And if I don't fulfill it, this is what is going to happen. How you cascade down, how you erodes other stuff.